Hey everyone, ready for a deep dive? We're tackling Dr. Joe Dispenza today.
Oh, yeah, he's the neuroscientist author guy, right? Blends science and wisdom to explore how our minds shape reality. Pretty interesting stuff.
You got it. You sent over those clips from Tony Robbins' YouTube channel.
Yeah, I thought they were fascinating. Figured we could unpack them together.
Absolutely. Let's jump right in. Dispenza doesn't hold back, does he? He comes out strong, saying, quote, "The best way to predict your future is to create it. Not from what we know, but from the unknown."
Bold. Definitely a bold statement. He believes we can become architects of our own reality, not limited by the past.
Love that idea. But how does he support it? Is there real science behind it, or is this just like positive thinking?
While he grounds his ideas in neuroscience and epigenetics, explains how learning something new creates neural connections in our brains, like forging a new path.
Oh, I like that. Building brain pathways.
Exactly, and the more you use that path, the more defined it becomes. Stronger.
So learning is key, but does that really mean we can change our future?
Well, this is where it gets really interesting. Nobel Prize-winning research by Eric Kandel showed that learning just one little piece of information can actually double the connections in a specific brain area. But there's a catch.
That catch. Oh, okay.
I was intrigued. If we don't use those connections, they get pruned away within hours or days.
Wow, so it's use it or lose it for our brains. So reviewing and applying what we learn, that's key to make it actually stick. But how does this tie into creating our future?
Dispenza says it's not enough to just passively absorb information. When we embody knowledge through experience, that triggers a chemical feedback loop, and it impacts our genes.
Okay, now we're talking real change. So not just reading a book, but living out the ideas in a way that creates change in our bodies.
Right. Let's say you learn a new stress management technique. Reading about it might create a few new pathways, but actually using it during stress, that's what triggers the cascade of emotions and responses. Those in turn signal our genes, which can lead to lasting changes in how our body responds to stress.
Wow, so we're changing our biology through experience. That's pretty empowering, but also kind of daunting. If our experiences shape us so much, what does that mean? For all those times we get stuck in negative patterns. Dispenza mentions 90% of our thoughts are the same every day. Does that mean we're doomed to repeat the same story?
That is the million-dollar question, and it leads to his next big point. He says those repetitive thoughts, actions, and feelings, they form our personality. And that becomes the lens through which we experience reality, like glasses that only show certain colors.
So we're on autopilot, recreating the same reality based on ingrained patterns. I know I've definitely felt trapped by old habits and ways of thinking. It's like you try to break free, but something keeps pulling you back.
Super common experience. And here's another fascinating thing. Research suggests a good chunk of our memories might not even be accurate. We're often reliving a past that's been distorted by our perceptions, beliefs,
Hold on, so we're clinging to a past. That might be partly made up. That's wild. But if we're living out a story that isn't even true, how do we rewrite it? How do we break free from this cycle of repeating the past?
Dispenza says to change our reality, we have to become greater than our body and the emotions that tether us to that past. He says instead of defining ourselves by who we've been, we can choose to define ourselves by who we want to become.
So shifting focus from past to future sounds a bit like positive thinking, though. How do we make that shift tangible? It's easy to get excited about a future vision, only to have it fizzle out when real life hits.
This is where Dispenza brings in the idea of intention, fueled by elevated emotions. He believes when we tap into joy, gratitude, love, emotions that lift us up, we actually shift our energy and broadcast a new signal out into the world.
Okay, you've got my attention. What does he mean by broadcasting a signal? What is that signal and how does it change things?
Now, this is where it gets deep. Dispenza goes into quantum physics and the concept of the quantum field, a field of infinite possibilities that exists. Beyond our physical reality, he says our thoughts and feelings act like a radio transmitter sending frequencies that interact with this field.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Quantum physics. That's getting a little out there for me. Can you break it down? How can something as abstract as the quantum field affect our lives? And where does meditation fit into all this?
This is where it gets really interesting. Dispenza's ideas start to connect in a mind-bending way. He thinks by calming our minds through things like meditation, we access deeper levels of consciousness and tap into that power of the quantum field, like tuning our radio to a different frequency, one that allows us to receive hidden information, energy, all that.
So meditation is the key then. What's so special about it that lets us access this hidden world? And how does Dispenza suggest we use it?
Meditation's not just about relaxing, though that is a nice perk. Dispenza sees it as a way to really get to know that constant chatter in our minds, and learn to detach from those thoughts and emotions that keep us looping in the past.
So not emptying our minds, but more like becoming the observer of our thoughts.
Exactly. Picture yourself by a river, watching the current flow. You see leaves, twigs, maybe some fish, but you're not jumping in and getting swept away. That's the idea with meditation, to be the conscious observer, not getting caught up in the drama of our thoughts.
I like that analogy. But sometimes my mind feels less like a peaceful stream, more like a raging torrent. How do we actually cultivate that observer state, especially when life gets crazy?
Dispenza has some specific techniques. He talks about disconnecting from external stuff, putting away the phone, turning off the TV, finding a quiet space to tune into your inner world, and focusing on the present moment, paying attention to your breath, senses, just the experience of being alive.
Okay, so things we can actually do, even if we don't have hours for meditation. I've also heard Dispenza's research shows meditation impacts our brains. What's happening there?
It's pretty remarkable. His studies show regular meditation can actually change our brainwave patterns. When we're stressed or anxious, our brains are in beta wave mode, associated with alertness and focus. But during meditation, they slow down, shifting into alpha and theta waves. Those are linked to relaxation, creativity, a more expansive awareness.
So we shift from fight or flight to rest and digest, letting our minds calm down and access deeper creativity and insight.
That's it. And there's more. His research shows meditation can synchronize the two hemispheres of the brain, leading to better harmony and coherence in our thinking and feeling. It can even create coherence in our heart rate variability, which has been linked to better emotional well-being, resilience.
Yeah. Wow, so meditation's like training our minds and bodies to level up. Let's shift gears a bit to something Dispenza talks a lot about, stress. He sees it as a big obstacle to creating the reality we want. Why is that?
Stress is a huge energy drain. When we're stressed, our bodies release hormones like cortisol, adrenaline, designed to help us handle threats. But chronic stress, those hormones wreak havoc. They deplete us, hurt our immune system, make it tough to think clearly, make good decisions.
Like we're stuck in survival mode, always reacting instead of seeing the bigger picture.
Exactly. And here's the crazy part. We can trigger that stress response just with our thoughts. Dwelling on a negative thought, worrying about the future, that can create a flood of stress hormones.
Wow, so even if things are calm externally, we can create an internal storm just by how we're thinking. How does this connect back to creating our reality? Is Dispenza saying stress blocks us from that quantum field and manifesting what we want?
He suggests that when we're stressed, we get fixated on matter, on control, operating from scarcity, from fear, like trying to force things to happen from a limited view, instead of trusting the infinite possibilities in that quantum field.
So we're so busy surviving that we forget we can thrive. So focused on controlling everything that we miss the power we have inside.
Exactly. But when we're present, relaxed, and heart-centered, we become more energetic, more open. We shift from a particle focus, where everything seems solid, fixed, to a wave focus, where we see the fluidity, the interconnectedness of it all.
Powerful imagery. Instead of a tiny particle, we're this expansive wave, part of something much bigger. It's like that quote, we're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience.
Beautifully put. And this is where Dispenza bridges science and spirituality. He suggests when we tap into that expanded awareness, we're not just changing our reality, but contributing to a collective shift in consciousness.
Okay, now this is mind-blowing. Dispenza talks about people having incredible experiences, like spontaneous healing, manifesting things that seem impossible. He mentioned a study where people used intention and emotion to actually change their DNA. Can you believe that?
He described this experiment where people focused on a vial of DNA, but didn't see much change. However, when they added strong emotions like love, gratitude, joy, the DNA started to unwind.
So it's about feeling those positive thoughts deeply. Our emotions aren't just fleeting feelings, they have a real impact.
For sure. Dispenza has this great analogy. He says, our thoughts are the electrical charge, and our feelings are the magnetic charge. It's the combination of the two. That creates a powerful signature influencing our reality.
That's brilliant. It makes you wonder, what are WE broadcasting right now? With our thoughts and feelings, signals of fear, lack, limitation. Or are we radiating love, abundance, possibility? That's a question we all got to ask ourselves. Makes you think about the energy we're putting out there, right? Empowering, but also a little scary to realize we have that much influence. But But how do we shift our energy to something more positive when we're surrounded by so much negativity and stress all the time?
Dispenza says the first step is awareness. We need to become conscious of our thoughts, habits, reactions. You notice when we're coming from a place of stress, fear, lack, like shining a light on those patterns that have been running in the background without us even realizing it.
So like that observer role with meditation, not judging ourselves, but just noticing those negative thoughts and emotions without getting carried away.
Exactly. And once we're aware of those patterns, we can make conscious choices.
Yeah.
Instead of reacting to stress with anxiety, frustration, we can pause, take a breath, and choose a more empowering response.
I like that. Choosing our response. It reminds me of that Viktor Frankl quote, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose. It's like reclaiming our power instead of being a victim.
Yeah, and Dispenza also points out when we're not fully present, we're basically running on autopilot, a program based on our past conditioning, beliefs, fears, reacting instead of consciously creating.
So true. We just go through the motions, letting our past run the show instead of taking control, choosing a new path. But if we're not fully present, how do we break free from that program? How do we actually start living in the now
Yeah.
and creating the future we want?
He suggests meditation is key for cultivating that presence. By quieting the mind, we create space for new possibilities. We start to see past the limitations of our conditioning and tap into the potential of the present moment.
It's like waking up from a dream and realizing we have the power to write a new script, but it's one thing to have the vision and another to make it real. How do we bridge that gap? How do we go from dreaming to doing?
Dispenza believes when we align our thoughts, feelings, and actions with a clear vision of the future, we start to collapse time and draw those experiences to us. He says the universe doesn't respond to our words, it responds to our frequency. So it's not enough to think positive thoughts, we need to feel them, believe them, act on them.
So we have to become a vibrational match for what we want, like tuning our internal radio to the frequency of our dreams. And the universe picks up the signal, reflecting it back as experiences, opportunities, relationships.
Exactly. And it's not about forcing things to happen or controlling every outcome. It's about surrendering to the flow, trusting the process, letting the universe handle the details in ways we might never have imagined.
This has been an amazing deep dive. It's really shifted my perspective. So as we wrap up, what are your biggest takeaways? Anything you're going to explore further or even try out in your own life?
What really stands out to me is that we're not limited by our past or even our current situation. We have the power to create our own reality, and it starts with understanding that connection between our mind, body, and that field of infinite potential, the quantum field. The more we explore this stuff, the more we see the incredible power we have inside each of us.
Couldn't agree more. We're not just passive observers, we are creators. And with a little awareness, some courage, and a lot of heart-centered intention, we can shape our reality in amazing ways.
For anyone listening, I encourage you to check out Dispenza's work. Dive into the research, try the practices, and most importantly, trust your own ability to create an extraordinary life.
Beautifully said. Remember, it all starts with awareness, cultivating those good vibes, and practicing presence. You never know what you might unlock within yourself.